Attention.
Ragin Review.
The Ragin Cajuns will be a source of pride for this university, for the alumni, fans, and donors as we achieve success in the classroom, in the competitive arena, and in the community.
It's about to get really fun.
We're looking for dudes that will stand up. Well, Coach, let me tell you today, I'm here and I'm ready to stand up. And I challenge you, Ragin Cajun Nation, to stand up with us. Stand up with us. Let's lock hand in hand and let's walk through the gates of Omaha.
Hey, I love y'all boys. Let's grind every day starting today. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Alert! Ready? Who's that team ready? Who's that team ready? That's up.
I got one thing to say right here. Cajuns win!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ragin Review podcast. Nick, Jerry, and myself going to break down a few things going on in Cajun Nation. May have a few things to say about what occurred on Sunday on both Diamond Sports. It's going to be a fun episode. So, like I said, last week, a week before last, some of these episodes write themselves, and this is another one of those weeks where we get to come on here and everything's basically already done for us. So it'll be fun tonight, and I'm sure there are some opinions that need to be espoused. So if anybody out there has something that they want to say about softball, baseball, golf, whatever, golf currently competing in a regional right now, so we'll talk about that as well. If anybody has anything they want to say, we highly encourage you to get on the Twitter space and let your opinions be known. But first, we're going to say hello to the boys. Nick, Jerry, what is up?
Glad you could make it, man. I know it was a little touch and go over there for a while this afternoon.
Mid-C out of here. We're taking a beating. I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, like a Cat 4 started to roll across Mid-City Lafayette. It came out of nowhere.
And it's funny because you live like right down the road from me, and like I told you before, we didn't really get much, but glad to see that you made it, man. That was,
Jerry, I can answer that for you. So when I used to work at the radio station, I worked for Planet Radio for years. I worked for KPEL, and whenever there was a hurricane, some of us would stay and camp out all night and give updates on the radio because that's a lot of people only had the radio. Man, when I tell you I became like an electricity expert, I really didn't know what I was talking about, but I started talking about substations and feeder lines and, I had no clue what I was talking about, but man, people believe me. So it was something to do with the feeder line and a substation, Josh. That's why you were out and you weren't, Jerry.
100%. Or a squirrel bit a line somewhere along the main drag here.
Nutrient chewed through it.
Yes, something happened where that or the house got zapped. I don't know what the hell happened, but we were supposed to go on at 7:15, so we apologize. We had to push it back a little bit, but we're here. We're here to talk. So sorry about that.
that's the beauty of being on a school grid. So they're definitely it's definitely advantageous on our end for that. But no, glad you're back, Josh. Glad you I see the lights on there, so that's definitely a plus.
Look, man, you never want to stay in a situation where the power is flickering. So I had to turn the master breaker off. And the cool thing that LUS will do is they'll send you a text message when everything's restored. So had to wait on that. It was literally 2 minutes before I told Nick to push the show back. So it worked out all right. Like 15 minutes before the show, we saw LUS people in the yard. And I was like, oh, gosh, all right, well, we're good. I think we'll be all right.
Either way, Jerry, you said, well, you got the lights on. Well, yeah, Jerry, he's speaking to us right now. So, yeah, the lights are on.
That's what I'm saying. He's here. That's good. He's present.
So, look, first thing we'll do is we'll give golf a shout-out, and then we'll do sponsors. Golf is currently 13 in the regional in Norman. They shot as a team, they shot 9 over. Not what they probably wanted to do. Milan led the team 1 under 71. And Eli Ortego came in at even par at 72. Some of the guys had a little bit of struggle early. They're in 13th currently after round 1. We'll give you guys another update probably tomorrow on social media, so be looking out for that. Follow the golf team as they try to make their way through the NCAA Regionals in Norman, Oklahoma, which I didn't really follow where the school across the basin finished, but early this morning they were doing pretty well. And, I mean, it's a stacked regional, as all of them are at this time of year, so Cajuns didn't do exactly what they wanted to do today, but you never know. Tomorrow's a new day, and round 2 could bring about some changes. So everybody pay attention to that. Give the golf team the support they deserve. They've had a great season. Let's move into sponsors. Say thank you very much to our great sponsors. Gordon McKernan, Injury Attorneys, the official injury attorney sponsor for the Ragin Review podcast. Offices in Lafayette, Alexandria, Lake Charles, Monroe, Shreveport, Zachary, Denham Springs, Gonzales, Hammond, and of course their home office in Baton Rouge. Remember, when you hire G, you get the G guarantee. If they can't win your case, you owe absolutely nothing, not a dime. They have done many, many things within the NIL space to help Louisiana athletes, Ragin' Cajun athletes in particular. We want to say thank you to Gordon and his team for that. Call them toll-free, 888-532-1573. You can also get them at getgordon.com on the web. Get Gordon, and get it done. Lafayette Roofing and General Contractors. Big shout out and thank you to Darren Doming. Of course, they're licensed and insured. They're locally owned and family operated. Darren is a proud UL alum and RCAF supporter, of course. Lafayette Roofing is certified with the BBB, where Mr. Doming serves as a member. Remember, if you've not inspected your roof for damage with all the crazy weather we've had, today being one of those easy examples where it just comes out of nowhere and things start flying and then electricity gets shut off for absolutely no reason, make sure you're checking those roofs. Any sagging, signs of water damage, dark spots, holes, cracks, or torn shingles, large amounts of shingle granular in your gutters, presence of rot, mold, or moisture. You want to make sure you get that taken care of, and Darren Doming's the guy to get that done. They have 3 different options for financing for your job. Please give them a call today, 337-237-ROOF. That's 237-7663, or you can get them on the web, Lafayette-roofing.com. Make sure you put the dash between the Lafayette and the roofing. Patriot Steel Group, great sponsor of Ragin' Cajuns baseball, Ragin' Cajun athletics, and of course the Ragin Review podcast. Those guys over at Patriot Steel Group would like to thank all RCAF donors and encourage everyone to consider giving any amount that they can to support our student athletes and their mission to promote our great university. Chris Russo has been a friend of the pod from day one, so we, of course, always appreciate that and say thanks. Patriot Steel Group was founded in 2021. The founders of Patriot Steel Group have over 100 years of experience collectively in the oil and gas industry. These guys can answer anything, any question you have about tubulars. Give Brandon Gollett or Reed Barbier a call, 337-443-9296. Or if you need more information about Patriot Steel, give them a search on LinkedIn. That's the best way you can get information on their company. Big shout out to Patriot Steel Group, Lafayette Roofing, and of course, Gordon McKernan for all the great sponsorships they've given to us and all the support financially they've helped us with to get Ragin Review done and do the best job we can for you all. So obviously, there's a whole lot to be said about what's happened with softball and what happened on Sunday. Before we get into the committee's decision and all the grievances we may have, I do want to spend some time on the positive. 46-13 is quite the accomplishment, but, hosting the Sun Belt Conference tournament in Lafayette, I thought it was a huge success. It was the number 6 RPI conference in all of college softball. I thought running through that, only having 2 losses all season is quite the accomplishment. And then, of course, sweeping through the tournament was an accomplishment. So I'd like to start there, Jerry. I'll let you go first. Your thoughts and your impressions on the way we hosted, how Lafayette showed up, how Lamson showed up. I just want to start there.
Well, I always enjoy whenever we host any type of tournament, whether it was baseball or softball. I thought the university and, of course, the game management team did a great job with getting these games in. It's always difficult, especially this time of year, when you have schedules and you have to play 3 or 4 games at a time, and then you get rain delays and all of these different scenarios that's really thrown at you at the last minute. And I thought we did a good job handling that. Thursday, I went to the game where we played ULM, and the game was delayed until around 8:20, I believe, due to a rain delay for the previous game. And I thought they handled it flawlessly. The game experience was great. The fans showed up. The atmosphere was outstanding, and they really hit it out of the park, no pun intended. So we've had a history of really doing a great job, running these tournaments. It's kind of sad that I want to say this is maybe the last time in a long time we're going to be hosting the Sun Belt Conference tournament, but I thought it was great overall. I thought the fans were great, especially for our games. And it was just nice to see us hold the trophy up once again for what is it, the 4th out of 6 year or 4th out of 5th year. So all in all, they get an A+ from me. it's never easy because it's a team effort when you host something like this. When you have to host a number of amount of teams that come in, you have to deal with the weather, you have to deal with all these external factors. But no, it was a job well done. I thought it was great overall.
Look,
Nick-
I've been behind the scenes for those, right?
Yeah, I
You
was getting
know,
ready- that
yeah, I was about to
that
say,
gonna
you
be my
know,
question.
you've been there, done that.
It's tough. Look, the I think the last year that we hosted it, gosh, I don't remember. Was that 2018?
2018, yeah, for baseball, correct.
Yeah, I remember that it was a situation where we had rain delays, we had stuff going on, but we weren't terribly behind the 8 ball. But just the amount of coordination it takes from an operations level so everything runs smoothly. I mean, I think I called 13 straight games, and that was just me doing the PA. I think the guys who were doing TV did all. I mean, think about doing one TV game. How about 13? So it's a huge effort. What I like about having the conference tournament at school sites is it gives the opportunity for a school to show other fans, what they're all about, the facilities, be proud about it. And you lose a little bit of that when you go to a neutral site. Now, some will say, well, the neutral site is better because you're more likely to have fans go to a neutral site game. And if the home team is hosting, and they're out early, then, nobody's at the tournament. Well, yeah, but nobody's, getting pumped up about Montgomery, Alabama.
Yeah, the other thing is if those fans are visiting, they're stuck here. So they got to
Right.
spend money in the hotels and they got to spend money in the restaurants. So,
Right.
the local economy benefits regardless if it's in Lafayette or Huntington or wherever.
So that's what I like about having it in host sites within the conference, because again, you get to see and you get to experience the different cultures and the different stadiums and the different fans all around the country. So I think that takes a little bit away from it. So yeah, it's tough seeing it being the last year for a while, as you said, Jerry, but the amount of coordination, preparation to pull it off with no real issues, I think is just a testament to the operations staff at UL, and hopefully the visiting fans had fun while they were here as well.
And look, I flipped around on the dial while I was at home, and Lamson just shows great on TV. You can feel the energy come through on the screen, and I'm proud of that. Nick, I'll go back to you. And Lafayette Shoutout was great. Overall, the event was fantastic. It always is at Lamson. I would like to say, and by the way, if anybody has comments in the space, please request to speak, and we'll get you on and get your thoughts. It's kind of why we're doing this tonight. We really wanted to get everybody else's thoughts on this. But there was a little bit of question of if Marshall was for real. I think we learned a little bit about their program, and we had a couple Twitter fights with some of those folks. So I thought it was funny, and it would be a good segment. But I'd also like to talk about Texas State. Texas State was the last. Apparently, they're the last team into the field of 64. So that's interesting. You see, they're getting an at-large bid for a team that didn't get out of the second round of the conference tournament. The health of softball in the Sun Belt Conference, I think that's a big deal. But I love the snippiness and the seemingly budding rivalry with Texas State and UL. You saw Sophie round the bases and point at the pitcher after she had kind of gotten after our dugout for striking out some of our kids, and I just love that. You know that I love the hate in sports, but I want to focus on number one. I want to focus on Marshall, and then I would like to talk a little bit about South Alabama, who I thought maybe had an opportunity to get an at-large if there was going to be a second. I was actually surprised by Texas State. Now, they have a couple of nice wins on the resume, but if you remember, South Al went to San Marcos and beat Texas State in their series. So I thought that was a little bit interesting. Above all else, there was a lot of interesting decisions made on Sunday, and we'll get to that next. But if it wasn't South Al and Texas State and Marshall, was there anybody else who stood out? And if it's nobody else, talk a little bit about those three teams, because I thought we learned a lot about their programs this weekend.
To be honest with you, I think those were the kind of three teams that stuck out to me. I mean, South Alabama already has a very good history. I mean, their coach has been there for a while. She's done a really good job. For a while, it was just like baseball. It was UL and South. That always went back
and they
forth.
also have the pitcher of the year in the league.
Of course. And Texas State's the same way. I mean, in the last few years, they were always kind of the team that went toe to toe with us. And the one year we didn't win the conference, it was them. So they've done a good job recruiting some good athletes out there in Central Texas. They've got a lot of talent. Their facilities are nice. They, you could tell they put some resources into their softball program. And so that's all, I mean, like you said, that's great for the Sun Belt. Marshall, I know the fans went back and forth. It was fun. I have nothing but mad respect for Marshall. I mean, they battled us till the end in that championship game. And look, they won 45 games this year, a team that really hadn't done that before, from what I understand. It was a magical year. There could have been some debates on whether or not they really deserved a spot to be in the regional, but they didn't make it, unfortunately. But that it's great, because if they can continue that success, that's 4 teams right there, and look, we can't exclude Troy. Troy's been up there too. And JMU, that's 6 teams right there in the Sun Belt that can be competitive year in and year out. And it's a reason why our RPI is number 6 overall. I mean, you're the number 6 conference in the entire collegiate softball world. That's huge. So, I have nothing but mad respect for these teams. I love the fact that they're playing well, because it makes our conference better. For the longest time, and we'll get into the conversation of whether or not we should have hosted, but when your conference gets better and Louisiana can win the conference with 4 or 5 teams that are top 50 RPI, that makes us better. That helps us recruit better. I mean, when now you have something, I mean, we obviously have a lot to recruit to, but when you have a conference that competes, like crazy, that's an extra tool to recruit to outside of just our facilities and success. And these girls are going to be challenged week in and week out. It's not going to be a cakewalk where you just zip on through and go in cruise control like we have in the past. So I think all 3 of those teams, and I'm not excluding Troy or JMU, this conference is ripe for success in softball. I think this conference is going to be special in the next few years. I think this conference is only going to get better, and it only makes us better. If it makes us better, I'm all for it. But I tip my hat off to those teams. I tip my hat off to Marshall. I tip my hat off to Texas State. I tip my hat off to South. But I'm just glad it's us once again holding up the trophy. But it's going to be more challenging as time goes on, the better these teams get. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's well-deserved, and it only makes us better and makes the conference better as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you just said. And look, JMU had a down year in softball. That's certainly not going to stay the case. But then I go back to the number 6 conference in the country, and you get 2 bids. So what, I get it's going to help with recruiting, but what if we're top 4? I mean, are we going to get more bids? Probably not, because then they'll change it and say, well, you're number 4, but you didn't have enough top 25 wins, or if you have enough top 25 wins, well, there's something else. So always move the goalposts for teams, and it seems like in our conference. So I don't know why my video's doing that. My bad. I'm a little delayed there. I'm already slow to begin with, so just go with it, man.
It's all good. I mean, look, there's an argument you can make that if Marshall wins the final, 3 teams in the tournament. And I don't know if that's ever happened because obviously UL's going to get the at-large bid if they lose that game. So that's, again, it goes to the health of the conference in softball. Rory, I see you there, and I see that you've requested to speak, sir. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Just a couple of thoughts. First of all, the way the tournament was managed, they do a fantastic job. I just cannot say how well of a job they do. It's incredible. I went to Troy 2 years ago and to South Alabama last year for the conference tournament. They do a good job. They do not, of course, there are not as many fans in attendance as there were when the Cajuns hosted this year. Again, they just do a fantastic job. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. I'm going to have to disagree a little bit with Jerry about Marshall. I don't have a lot of respect for them. That's because their coach chose to schedule the 260th strength of schedule out of conference in the nation. That's 260th. The Cajuns chose to have the number 3 out of conference schedule in the nation. The coach played teams like Bellarmine. Have you ever heard of a college called Bellarmine?
Have not.
Yeah,
No.
they're transitioning. I think they just transitioned in Division 1 like last year, if I'm not mistaken.
They beat Bellarmine 17-2. They played other teams like Maine, Cleveland State, Kent State, Morehead State, Elon. I mean, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And I asked somebody who was in the know, a very close friend of the coach. I asked why she didn't schedule up, and the answer that was given was this: because she wants to keep her job. So when I heard that, all that does, scheduling like she does to have, 45 wins and 9 losses, is to keep her job, whereas it hurts the RPI of the opponents that she is playing in the Sun Belt Conference. Now, they had the pitcher. This is the only year that pitcher has been at that school. She was a transfer from North Carolina State, a 5th-year senior. She is not going to be there next year. And I'm going to tell you this right now. They could have played 10 more innings, and Marshall would not have scored against Sam Landry.
I agree with that.
What's that?
I agree 100% with that.
If you watch some of the swings those players put on the pitches that Sam threw, go back and watch the second to last batter strikeout on 3 off-speed pitches that girl missed by at least 2.5 feet. She looked like an 8th grader swinging that ball. But get this, if you go look at Marshall's batting average per player, they got 450, 400, 375, 350, 325. Why? Because the coach chose to play absolutely no one. And let me just finish with this. The fans there from Marshall, the fans there from Texas State, and the ones from South Alabama that I spoke to, they were all great. They had a great time. They were eating some great food. They had a really fantastic time here. They were all impressed. I mean, not so much, of course, South Alabama and Texas State, because they had been here before, but the Marshall fans had not, and they were just really, really impressed with our facility. Now, Marshall averages about 450 fans per game. They did have 2,700 fans at one of their games this year because they played Alabama. All right. But again, I thought the fans that were there from the other schools were very nice. There was no arguments in the stands. It was just a great event. And I want to make one thing clear before I hang up. 3 people sent me texts today saying, well, I guess I'm not going to go watch the Cajuns play in Baton Rouge. I'm like, why aren't you going? Because there aren't any tickets available. It's all sold out. That is a total lie. That stadium does not sell out because you can walk up a minute before the game starts and buy a ticket to sit in the berm. All you have to do is bring a chair. So if you're reading somewhere or you're hearing somewhere that the games are sold out, it is 100% false. It is not true. So the Cajun fans need to show up in Baton Rouge and maybe have more Cajun fans there than LSU fans, because this is UL's regional. They're not playing it in Lafayette. They're playing it 60 miles to the east. This is the Cajuns regional to win.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. We're going to definitely tweet that out to make sure that our followers know that the tickets are available. Before you run, Rory, let me ask you this one thing. The offense kind of sputtered a little bit against Nestor. What were your thoughts against Nestor? Or what were your thoughts overall about how she performed and her talent level? Do you think she's the real deal?
Any pitcher that throws 350 pitches over a 3-game back-to-back in the 90-degree heat that she was not used to throwing in, I've got to give her props, man.
Yeah, that's the first time I've seen her at all, and I figured that she had the goods. I mean, she had swing and miss stuff, so I was impressed with her. Overall, I don't know anything about Marshall. It's the first time I've seen him play. The numbers say, I mean, it's very difficult to win 45 games and still have a strength of schedule in the 260s. I mean, good Lord, that's unfathomable almost. But UL fans need to show up in Baton Rouge on this weekend. There's no question about it. I like the way you put that. That's UL's regional. It got taken from us. It's in Baton Rouge. We need to show up and support our girls.
Yeah, and y'all probably know this. I'm thinking Sophie Piskus was Sydney Berzon's catcher in high school. So she knows exactly how Sydney pitches. Sophie needs to educate her teammates on exactly what's coming.
You've probably watched LSU softball more than we have this year. Do you have any thoughts on where the matchups benefit the Cajuns? Do you have any thoughts on where maybe it doesn't?
No, I do. I have a lot of thoughts on LSU. Let me tell you something. Kilponen is about 70%. She's not healthy. Her back is injured. Okay. Sydney Berzon is a freshman. She's an excellent pitcher. The thing about LSU is, can they hit Sam Landry? If Samantha Landry is on, I don't see them being very successful. Taylor Pleasance, I don't think is 100%. She hasn't hit a home run in a couple of months because she didn't play or she played maybe at 30% for quite some time. She's not at 100%. The leadoff hitter, Coffey, if you can keep her off the base as a leadoff hitter, you've got a chance to hold them scoreless. If a couple of runners, let's say Coffey gets on and the second batter gets on, and then there's an out or something, and Taylor Pleasance comes to the plate, they better walk her. I don't care if she's injured or not. She has burned the Cajuns just too many times. I have seen her burn too many teams with the game on the line. There's an open base. They pitch to her, and she hits the knockoff, the walk-off run where if they would have walked her. I do realize that Georgia Clark is behind her, but I just think Taylor Pleasance is a better hitter. Again, I don't think they should pitch to her if there are two outs and there is an open base. And it's all going to come down to pitching. I mean, is Sam Landry going to be able to pitch like she has the last couple of weeks? What about Megan Shorman? And I'm going to tell you right now, I got to give credit to Kendra Lamb. She has just been incredible coming out of the bullpen. I mean, she has just shut those teams down. She beat LSU the last time they played in a regional. I think she threw a 3-hitter against them. So, yes, she is capable of coming in and being very, very effective. I think they match up very well. Again, the question is, can the Cajuns do it at the plate? There's a couple of girls on the team that are struggling right now. They're going to have to up their presence at the plate and put the bat on the ball. So that's about what I've got to say about the LSU. If you ask, so there's your answer.
No, listen, I really appreciate it. Last question before we let you run. Sam seems like she's figured something out in the early innings, and we all know if you're going to get to Sam, you got to do it early, and if you don't, she's usually going to shut the door. What's different? What did she figure out in the early innings? Is it a confidence situation? What's going on with Sam, and why has she been so much better early in games?
That's a good question. Sam has always taken a little time to figure out the umpire's strike zone. She has thrown some balls early in a game where she thought the balls that she threw were strikes, and the umpire did not call them strikes. And I think it really frustrated her. She said she had to get angry to pitch. I also think that she's just grown up. I don't think she's the same pitcher she was earlier this year. I just think she had some, I don't even know what to call it, like a head case at times because, man, she was great one day. She was not great the next. She'd walk 3 batters. She'd hit another batter. That has kind of gone away. And I think what she did, I think she mentioned this when she did this a couple of games ago, is that for the first 3.5 innings, 4 innings, she pitched one way, and then she changed it up for the last 3 of the last 2.5 innings and threw kind of like different stuff. She might have been, throwing the off-speed pitch more. She got away from that, and she was throwing, some stuff on the outside corner, and she just kind of gave them a different look the second and third time they came around as opposed to the first time they were at the plate. And that just had the batters perplexed. And again, she threw a 1-hitter against Marshall. The girl that hit it was the 9-hole hitter hitting 180 who just stuck her bat out, and the ball just happened to hit the bat. If that doesn't happen, she throws a no-hitter against Marshall in the championship game.
That's pretty wild. Her changeup was ferocious this past Sunday or Saturday. So that was great to see. I hope Sam is peak Sam right now because we need it. And I think peak Sam is good enough to beat LSU and Baton Rouge. So Before you run, please let everybody know where to check out your podcast while we're all listening.
Yeah, my podcast is on the same channels that yours is on. It's called Roarman's Ragin College Softball Podcast. Me and Tara Lavier got together and kind of had our reactions as the Field of 64 was going live. So it's pretty interesting. We had some pretty crazy reactions because there were some pretty crazy things that happened. So look, I'm going to go let somebody else talk. And Nick, I see you didn't get the memo. You don't have a hat on backwards. So maybe next week.
Thanks for catching that. Yeah, I couldn't find a backwards cap to put on. You know, I had to have the strap and I couldn't find one. So maybe next week.
All right, man. Hey, I really enjoy your show. You do a great job. Keep it up, man. I'll listen for the rest of the way. Thanks.
Thanks, Rory. Appreciate the insight.
Yes, sir.
So, Josh, do you know the story? I mean, what was the deal with that Texas State pitcher who was staring our girls down and like pointing at the dugout? Like, what was that?
I don't know. I love it. So every time they would every time she would strike a girl out, she would point at the dugout and say something. Which, look, again,
yeah,
I love the hate in sports because as soon as Piscas comes up and hits the bomb, she's pointing at her the whole way around the base pass. I'm here for it. That makes it fun. I thought.
I guess it makes it fun, but I also want to have a classy program, right? And I'm not saying what we did wasn't classy because we're just responding to their trashiness. But like, I don't know. I'm just saying, if it was a pitcher on my team that was showboating like that against the other team, I would be pretty pissed. I wouldn't be happy about it.
100%, and I'm with you. Now, I'm the type of guy that believes in throwing the second punch. Like, I'm never gonna pick a fight or tease But if you challenge me, I will let you know when I beat you.
But that's why the Southern Miss thing pissed me off so bad, because we never did. We never got back at him for showboating and being stupid and acting like we're going to talk about that later. I don't want to get into it.
I got a lot to say about DJ Lynch. There's going to be plenty to be said. But anyway, JMV, we see you there. Go ahead and go ahead and give your comments, sir. Thanks for joining the show. Network's still messing up, man. I don't know what happened. This storm just wrecked everything. Jared, as soon as you connect, you can start talking, but we're gonna fill space in the meantime.
I had to do a browser switch. Now I'm good. Now I'm not lagging, so we're good.
Sheesh.
I'm the only guy with like normal technology right now.
That's a freaking Christmas.
How is that possible? What's
Up
going
is
on
down,
here?
left is right.
You're probably still using a Chromebook. That's why.
JMV, the floor is yours, sir. Please take it.
Yeah, I'm not sure where y'all guys are getting that Jessica Moreland pointed to our dugout after she struck everybody. Every time she struck a batter out, she actually didn't strike any batters out, and neither did the pitcher that came in behind her. What had actually happened is when Sophie hit the bomb, the first baseman was talking trash. That's where it all started. So a lot of people think it's Mullins. Mullins is a great pitcher. She's a great competitor, but she did not start that.
Well, I got that from Jay Walker, who was watching the game. He said that when maybe it wasn't a strikeout, but when we would get out, she would point into the dugout. Maybe we got that part wrong, but Jay's the one who told everybody that. I'm not throwing Jay under the bus, but it's what happened.
Whoever it was, we don't like him. That's the point. We do not like whoever it was.
And I highly endorse Sophie pointing at the pitcher. I mean, regardless, I'm here for the hate. What else you got, Jay?
I'm good.
Okay, good. Appreciate you joining the show.
Man, just keeping him straight, man. He just want to set the record straight.
Hey, look, we're here for all the input. Look, make us better. That's fine with me. I really appreciate Rory joining him because he's a trove of knowledge. He knows exactly what he's talking about. His podcast is fantastic. If you'd like to get into the weeds on the softball stuff, check it out. It's really good stuff. But let's roll into the committee. I know Jerry was very passionate, so I'm going to give the floor to Jerry and let him kind of just take it. I said after Clearwater, and I know that's a long time ago, and this team was young then, and this team has grown up a lot since then, and I think we're a much better team. I think if we play Clearwater now, we win some of those games. I really believe that. But I said after Clearwater, you got to get more than one. You got to win those games, and you can't lose to A&M and Baylor in succession in the same week. I thought it was a tough road to hoe, and it turned out to be the top 25 record that did us in. But we'll start from the top, Jerry. You take it, and then we'll give our opinions.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I've always had a problem with the softball selection committee because I've always thought it was a flawed system. The contradictions, the number of times they've moved the goalposts, like Nick had mentioned. For me, I had asked a few of my friends leading up to the Sun Belt tournament, would you rather be a 16 seed and host and have to end up going to somewhere like Norman, Oklahoma to take a best out of 3 against Oklahoma to go to the World Series? Or would you rather go to on the road to like an 8 or 9 seed, have a chance to win there and be paired with an 8 or 9 seed and have a chance to go to Oklahoma City? And originally my thought was, I wouldn't mind going to an 8 or 9 seed on the road and winning, having a chance to win with an easier pathway to Oklahoma City. After experiencing what I experienced at the softball tournament or the Sun Belt tournament this weekend and seeing the atmosphere that was at Lamson Park, I kind of changed my mind a little bit because I felt that, our fans deserve to see our team host. You played the number 3 non-conference schedule in America. Your RPI was at number 11. Your strength of schedule was in the top 15, and you won the conference going away, and you won the conference tournament. And I figured, or I thought going into the conference tournament, number one, I thought D1 baseball was it D1 baseball or D1 softball? No disrespect, but I thought they disrespected us.
No,
I mean, not putting us
disrespect
in the,
them because that was terrible.
not
No
putting us in the
disrespect,
top
but you
25.
disrespected me, so I'm going to disrespect you back.
Well, I mean, no, I'm just going to say they didn't put us in the top 25. I thought that was crazy. Whoever's handling those polls, you better check again. That's ridiculous. We should have been in the top 25. I think perception is key in those selection committees. I think not being ranked in the top 25 hurt us a little bit. But I think what bothers me the most, and look, I get it, 2-10 against RPI top 25. 17 and 10 against RPI top 50. And I understand they emphasize the RPI top 25. But here's the reality. If that's what they're going to emphasize moving forward, it's going to be very difficult for us to ever host again, because you're not going to be able to always schedule top 25 teams. You're not going to be able to always qualify or we can't go to the Clearwater tournament every year. It's like trying to go to the Shriners Classic every year in baseball. That's not how this works. And so, Coach Glasgow went on the road to Texas. He went on the road to Baylor. He played Florida, went to these hard tournaments. I mean, he scheduled the toughest non-conference schedule we've probably ever played in. And, no, Florida was not a top 25 RPI team, but we beat them. We beat 3 SEC teams. We beat LSU. We beat Ole Miss. We beat Florida. All 3 teams are going to regionals. We beat Indiana. They were in the Big Ten final, lost to Northwestern. They're going to a regional. And we beat some really good teams. And to determine your fate of hosting a regional just by the RPI top 25, I just don't. I think it's flawed. I mean, how many times have we heard it's just about the RPI? And then after it's just about the RPI. Well, it's about the strength of schedule. Well, it's about the RPI top 50. But now it's about the RPI top 25. I just feel like there's no consistency on those selections. If you look at baseball, I remember Jay Walker talking about it one year, how the selection worked. I don't even know if Louisiana was in it that one year, but I think baseball does it right because they do emphasize a lot about the RPI. They don't necessarily dig into, well, did you beat this team? Did you beat what's your record against top 10 RPI? They emphasize the basis of the RPI and the strength of schedule. And I think softball, I call it flawed because, we didn't get a host because we were 2-10 against RPI top 25. But then on the other hand, that's like telling us they don't emphasize the RPI. But then you look at a team like Missouri. I got 2 teams right here, 2 teams in the SEC right now. They like to talk about, there's obvious SEC favoritism. Missouri finished dead last in the SEC. Okay. They're 34-24 overall. Their RPI was like 40. With a 7-17 SEC record, and they got in as an at-large. Ole Miss, 30-26 overall. I think they were probably in the upper 30s or low 30s, maybe mid to low 30s in RPI.
39.
30-26 overall. 39. 30-26 overall with a loss to Louisiana. 8-16 in the SEC. Got in as an at-large. 2 teams with a combined SEC record of 15-33 got in as an at-large. But you want to tell me you don't emphasize RPI when their justification for letting those 2 teams in were RPI. So to me, which is it? Is it RPI? Is it RPI top 25? Which is it? That's the problem I have with this whole entire system. Now, look, I think our path to Oklahoma City is a lot easier now because I think the Baton Rouge Regional is winnable. And I don't think Washington is a tough team to beat. And maybe, look, McNeese beat them earlier this year. They might pull an upset and pull it off, and we may have a super regional in Lamson. But the problem is don't contradict yourself on your selections, and also quit moving the goalposts. Just make it easy. Quit overcomplicating this. Alabama had an RPI at number 12. They get a 5 seed. Lower than our RPI, they got a 5 seed.
That's the biggest ridiculous. As far as the selection show goes, to me, the Alabama thing is the worst of all.
But that's the problem. It's too inconsistent. It's way too inconsistent. It's flawed. I understand the SEC is good in softball, but when you have an 8-16 conference record and a 7-17 conference record, and you finish dead last in your conference, we talk about the split in high school sports, right? In Louisiana, the public school and the private school, and you could be on either side. But I've always said the biggest flaw of the split was they would let teams in with 2-8 records into the playoffs in football. 2-8 records. You don't deserve to get in with a 2-8 record. Just like you don't deserve to get in as an at-large with a 7-17 conference record, and you're dead last in your conference. What type of precedence does that set? So
if you have a losing record in your conference, I don't care what conference it is. If you have a losing conference record, you don't belong in postseason play. I'm sorry.
Right. And to sum it up, my issue is be consistent in how you select. You don't emphasize one thing one year, and then you don't emphasize the next thing the next year. They asked us to schedule non-conference. We did. No, we didn't win all of our games. No, we didn't win as many as we could have. But then you know what? We still finished with an 11 RPI and a top 15 strength of schedule.
Number 3 out of conference strength of schedule, by the way.
Yeah, so again, consistency. And when you're letting teams in that are in dead last in your conference, don't lecture me about RPI. Don't lecture me about top 25 wins. Because if you're letting teams in with 7-17 conference records, you basically killed your entire narrative at that point. I'm sorry. And one of those teams they let in, we beat. So all I'm asking for is just a little consistency. I'm not mad that we're not yes, I was upset yesterday. I've kind of gotten over that. I think we can still win the regional. All I'm asking is for just consistency on how you select your teams. That's it.
You're never going to get it. You can hope, you can wish. You're never going to get it because it doesn't fit.
How do you let a 7-17, a team with a 7-17 conference record who finished dead last as an at-large? I'll never understand that. And then you want to lecture me about certain wins and all this other stuff. When you do that, your entire argument's gone in my book. Your argument is, you killed your own argument when you do that. But
to your point, Jerry, you talked about you can't schedule, 15 top 25 teams every year. Okay, let's throw that out. Let's say we didn't, and let's say our RPI is a little bit lower. And let's say our record against the top 50. I mean, you look at our record against the top 50 right now, 17-10, right? You said it. Texas against the top 50. You know what they were? 10-11. You know what Clemson was? 9-8. Both of them are hosting on top above us. But because they have more top 25 wins, oh, well, then they get in and we don't. And look, I'm not arguing whether or not we have the easier path. The point that I'm trying to make is when you deserve it, you should have it. You should get a host a regional off of merit. And I feel like they did everything that they could possibly do outside of winning 2 or 3 more top 25 games to do that. But when you look at the resume of the other teams, and let's broaden it, because again, this was one of the years where we could have that many top 25 games. In typical seasons, we won't. So that's why you look at top 50, because that's more realistic across the board, equitable for all of Division I softball. When you look at top 50, we deserve it. So you're saying don't move the goalposts. They are going to move the goalposts, whatever it takes for them to satisfy whatever need and whatever teams they want to see. Okay? Like the Alabama thing is perfect. That's a perfect example. Alabama has no business being a number 5 seed, host seed in the tournament. But guess what? They manufactured the reasoning to put them there. Why? Because it's SEC, because it's ESPN, and because they can. And there's nothing we can do about it. And it's never going to change.
I always look at the message that the committee sends. And for the most part, they've been consistent. It's been consistently bad. But to their credit, they've always said, you got to schedule up to get the favoritism. You got to schedule up. You got to schedule up. I agree with that to a certain degree. The message that you're sending to the non-power fives or the non-traditional powers, or however you want to describe it in softball, is, hey, look, don't schedule up Try to win your conference and try to find a few teams willing to play you on the fringe and just try to sneak in because of the AQ. Don't schedule up, because if you schedule up and you don't win those games, we're going to punish you. And I think that above all else, that is the biggest issue. So,
but you mentioned merit, okay? We're not a Johnny-come-lately softball team. It's not like we just had a good year this year. We haven't missed a regional in like 25 years. We've been to 6 Women's College World Series.
But they're still calling us mid-major, Jerry. Regionals. We're still mid-major. According to the talking heads on ESPN, we're a mid-major program.
Yeah, we're a mid-major program that's actually has more historic success in most of these schools.
There was nothing mid-major about our softball program.
It is absurd to even call us a mid-major. It's like when they call Gonzaga in basketball, right? A lot of people are having debates on whether or not to call a Gonzaga a blue blood. Look, we're kind of a blue blood in softball. I mean, let's be real. We are. I mean, yeah, Gonzaga plays in the West Coast Conference, but they're still a team that they compete with the best of the best and beat the best of the best. I've always called us the Gonzaga of softball because that's what we are. Look at our history. It's not like and that's the thing we were joking with Marshall fans, they're telling Marshall fans, look, until you get to our level of success over the past 30 years, you can't really say anything about our program. I'm sorry. It's just, you got a little ways to go to catch up to us there. But it goes to show you that, like you said, the respect isn't there. I mean, it's not. But what I'd like to know is how is it that from 2000 to 2016, we've hosted 4 or 5 times. We hosted a super regional. We've been to the College World Series a handful of times during that span. But yeah, all of a sudden now we're being left out. I mean, that's crazy talk. I mean, that's absurd. It's not like, again, we're not some new team, some new kid on the block that, oh, well, Louisiana just started winning. We've had success. We have a resume. We have a track record. That's something that I don't get. I mean, if you want to talk about merit, we have the merit. I don't understand why they would just look at us as some regular mid-major. We're not a mid-major in softball. I mean, we're not.
Large programs with the money. Yes, large programs with the money are going to continue to coalesce. The sport is getting smaller. Don't expect that this is not something that's going to continue to happen, because it is. I mean, look at the trends everywhere. It's not just softball, obviously.
Look, if we started a checkers league in Division I and we started making money off of it, SEC would have the biggest and the best checkers league in the history of sports within 2 years. And then they try to get rid of us because we have no business there. That's what they're doing with softball. Nobody cared about softball 10 years ago. All of a sudden, teams like us start winning. They were like, oh, well, we need to invest in that. And they do, and they take our coach, right? And they take all the coaches that created what is the present softball, what softball currently is in college sports, and they take them and they create their own programs, and then they look down at us like, you don't belong with us anymore. That's exactly what baseball was the same thing until LSU started putting money into it. Where was LSU baseball?
They raided and pillaged everything we had.
To say that the SEC deserves every team. I think Mississippi State was the only team left out. To put every single team except for one into the regional, including those with 8-16 and 7-17 conference, SEC records. To me, that's absurd.
But I understand it's going to happen in baseball in a few weeks.
That is crazy. That is crazy. Like, I understand the SEC's good, and I know they've got some good teams, but they're not that good. Like, to me, it's exaggerated. It's overemphasized. And I believe what I was told by a very reliable source who knows these kind of things, that Ole Miss got in because they beat LSU and they beat some other team in the SEC tournament. So you mean to tell me out of the 60 games you've played, where you're 8-16 and you're 30-26, or should I say without the 2 wins, you're 28-26, that you deserve an at-large because you won 2 games out of 60, and that should all of a sudden boost up your resume to get an at-large bid? How many baseball teams are out there with 30-26 records that get in as an at-large? That's like Mississippi State. Mississippi State went to Baton Rouge, took 2 out of 3 from LSU, right? They're 26-24.
Well, I'm not
the school across the basin, whatever. Do you think they deserve an at-large bid for being 26-24 and getting?
Of course not. They're not good. We should have beaten them.
So how does Ole Miss get in with a 30-26 record as an at-large? How does that happen?
The idea that an entire conference can get into the postseason is outrageous. It should not be
crazy.
Allowed.
That's not because the SEC is good.
You're not earning it if you don't have a winning conference record, you don't belong in the
It's
the postseason.
bias, man. They could say all they want. It is clear, obvious bias.
It is.
BIAS,
Now, look,
bias.
having said all of that, I'm going to take an unpopular stance. I'm just going to be honest with how I feel about it. When you're in our position, you got to take away all the excuses. And 2-9 against the conference or the RPI top 25 it's an open door for them to say, well, you could have done this better. So if I'm being honest with myself, I stop and think about that. And okay, that's part of it. The other thing is that the argument has been made, do you want to host as a 15 or a 16 and have to play UCLA or Oklahoma? Of course not. I don't want to roll through a home regional and then have to go and have my season ended. Now, look, I don't think that the girls are not good enough to win. We're just talking about historic softball teams here. And I know that UCLA was a one-run loss, and we probably should have won the game if we had a couple of different decisions being made at the Clearwater. I get it. I think that they're a different team now. I think we're better, but I still think that there's a lot of things that went. I think that UCLA would handle our super regional differently than they did in the Clearwater tournament. I want to make it back to Oklahoma City, and I think we all agree that that's the pinnacle of the program. We've done that. We've done everything in the sport from a softball standpoint except win a national championship. And if we're gonna, Glasgow really believes he's going to win a national championship here. And if we're going to buy into that, then the path to a national championship has got to be at the top of the list. Going to number 10, Baton Rouge, the school across the basin. Number one, we've already beaten them. We know that we can beat them. You know, Rory made comment about several players that are not 100%. The lineup doesn't wow you. They lost to an Ole Miss team that we dominated. Well, not dominated. We beat them, but we played really well against Ole Miss. They lost to that team, and I know it was a good game, winning extra innings. I know all that stuff. But they lost recently. They didn't win a game in their conference tournament. That school across the basin didn't. I think you can't do much better with regard to a path to getting back to Oklahoma City. I also think that, look, it's close. We're familiar. Our fans are going to travel. When's the last time you saw the Ragin Cajun softball team play really, really upset? It's been a while. You know, that feeling of being disrespected, that goes a long way. You know, for competitive people like Maddie Hayden and Lex and Sam and Sophie, those girls are going to rise to the occasion, I think, just from the level of disrespect that they feel from. Look, I agree that the merit was there. I agree that they earned their host site. I'm sick for the city of Lafayette for all the great things we could have benefited from an economical standpoint of getting Lamson on national television, featuring the softball program. All those things are fantastic, and those are all the great things about hosting. But if we're talking about getting to Oklahoma City, this is really not a bad path. I'd love to get you guys' thoughts, but this might actually be a positive for the team. I hate to be the guy to say it out loud, but this might actually be a positive.
Look, I get it. I get everything you're saying, and I'm not saying I don't agree with you. My thing is, one, I feel like if you earned a host spot, you should have the host spot. And that's a source of pride for the program and for the players. And when you feel like they deserve it, I don't care who I'm facing in the second, in the supers. I want that for them. Now, that being said, the one thing that does worry me about this regional is every single time we play a regional in Baton Rouge, there is a critical game-changing call that goes against us. Yep. Every single time. It's going to happen again. And that to me is what scares me, is because the committee has already done what they could do to screw us out of trying to, do what we want to do. But it's like history repeating itself. Every time we go there, there's something that happens at a critical point in the game that goes against us that shouldn't have. So that's the only thing that I am a little iffy about in this regional. Do I think we can win it? I expect us to win it. I do. That's my opinion. I don't. That team does not scare me.
Look, their fans are talking. Half their fans are ready to cut ties with Beth Torino. I mean, if you look at their message boards, if you hear what they're saying, they're not happy with her right now. They feel that she hasn't accomplished what she was meant to accomplish. And
Jerry, they wanted to fire their head coach in football 2 games into the season. Don't take that.
Yeah, but this is true. But this is you're starting to see more of it, and this is real. I mean, the impatience is really starting to kick in with their program, and also too, they were 13 and 11 in conference play. They weren't that great. Not what they usually are, and we're ripe for the picking. I mean, we've got a team that we have good pitchers. I think if the bats come alive, we can be dangerous. And this is a perfect scenario for us to go there because we've won the Baton Rouge Regional before. We've done it multiple times. I think this is a year that's ripe for the picking. And look, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I have nothing against their softball team because I'm sure their fans are probably just as upset that we got sent over there. You know, it's never fun when you have a team, even if we would have hosted, I wouldn't have been happy with bringing a team with an 11 RPI to our stadium because it makes it hard for us to advance. So this is a golden opportunity. Like you said, Nick, this is a golden opportunity for us to go in there and make a statement and play angry. And I really look, I expect to win the regional too. I really do. I expect to win the regional. And look, I mean, if luck goes our way, maybe there might be an upset up in Seattle and maybe we might have a super regional in Lamson. But first things first, you got a game against Omaha, take care of business, and then we'll focus on game 2. But it's a winnable regional. There's no question it's a winnable regional. But here's another thing about all that foolishness with the bad calls. Let's put ourselves in position to avoid it. Play well, play smart, dominate, and maybe we won't have to worry about that to determine the game.
Look, I'm just going to say Roy's talking about instant replay. How many times this baseball season have we seen instant replay where the call is obviously missed and it's clear and we can see that it was a missed call and the call on the field stands? That does not give me any comfort right now. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
We got to start petitioning the softball committee that SEC crews cannot work SEC regionals. I mean, how can you? That's just totally ridiculous to me. You got to find different crews. Now they'll find ways to cheat. You know, whatever. I don't want to get into it because that'll become a thing. But I agree with you, Nick. There's too many calls over the years where you just shake your head. And Dave was talking about on the radio today how Cajun fans always think we're being cheated. Well, that's because we always are being cheated, one way or another. Whether it's the NCAA tournament in basketball where we've been cheated 3 or 4 times, or it's the softball tournament we've been cheated. Baseball, not so much.
This ain't the first time, and you look back to when we had to the first time we had to go to A&M. I mean, our RPI was through the roof, and A&M was like a number 5 national seed, and we were like a number 2 seed at their regional. Like that wasn't a reward for us.
A&M, you're talking about the A&M regional in 2012?
Yeah, where Tatford made that ridiculous.
That was 07.
It was 07. I mean, I'm going way back. But like our RPI was really, really good, and Texas A&M was really, really good. They were like a national seed, and we had to travel over there. And Dan, thank goodness, I remember being on the conference call and listening to Dan McDonald asking the tough question. Like he gave all the numbers and all the stats, and they pushed the guy to was a committee chairman to finally say, well, I don't know, we just. I don't know. Good point. We just made the decision. So he looked like a fool. Nobody wanted to push this woman on the committee that was there for 5 seconds on TV going, well, we wanted the best records against the top 25. Thanks. Good talking to you. Nobody asked the tough questions. Why wasn't anybody asking the questions? Because it was all rigged. But that's conspiracy theorist. Sorry.
Well, no, back to your point, Josh, about I know you're like we were talking about. Yes, it's relieving to have an easier path to Oklahoma City because that's the goal. At the same time, my question is, if not this year where we've done basically almost everything we were supposed to do, if not now, then when? Because again, you can't, it's not like we can't sign up for the Clearwater tournament every year and then all of a sudden just magically go undefeated against top 10 teams. I mean, it just doesn't happen, unless you're Oklahoma, that doesn't happen for anybody. So if not now, if that's going to be the resume or if that's what they're looking for in the resume from now on is top 25 RPI record, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to have that luxury of scheduling all the time, or we're just going to have the hardest non-conference schedule year in and year out. So if not now, then when? When are we ever going to host again if that's going to be the criteria?
Well, my thing is, Jerry, like if we're not good enough to host, okay, let's take that all out of consideration. We're not good enough to host according to the committee. Why do we have to keep being sent to Baton Rouge? Like that is not fair to LSU. That's not fair to us. It's not fair to the state. And I know we get into the we don't have to pull for the state, but it really it's not fair that Louisiana can only have one team a year make it to the supers and to Oklahoma City. So that's the problem I have is if we were sent to an 11 seed, that was not in Louisiana, it would probably be a little more palatable. But the fact that we continue to be sent to this team, I get it that they're close, but who are you rewarding? Like, are you rewarding us by sending us there and not having a home crowd 60 miles down the road where we have an obvious sort of rivalry going on? That to me is not rewarding you. Now, do I think it's an easier path? Yes, I don't think it's a terrible path. Josh, you pointed out exactly why, but I'm just tired of being sent there. Like, do something else.
Plus, it stinks. I hate going there. It's gross.
I hate the traffic. I lived there for 10 years. I know.
I hate going on that. Oh, it's disgusting. I hate that place.
And they want to lecture us about food, but that's for another day.
That's a whole other thing.
I think Little Village is good.
Oh man, don't get me started. First of all, Little Village is one of the worst restaurants I've ever eaten at in my entire life. They think Geno's is real Italian food. Get out of here.
I mean, I do think it gives us opportunities to bring our fans. I mean, our fans travel there well. You're going to see a lot of red in the berm, like Rory said. You're going to see a lot of red in the stands. That's great. But at the same time, like, again, to your point, Nick, it's like, this is the one time I'll say, it's good to have the more Louisiana teams, the better. Like, I wouldn't mind facing them in Oklahoma City. I think that'd be fun. I mean, yes, we'd want to beat them. And yes, we want to beat them, whether it's now or always want to beat them. But at the same time, I think it's good for the state when you have more teams instead of just one, because guess what? After this weekend, only one team advances in Louisiana out of the regional. I don't think Omaha Prairie View is going to make it out, but
I don't think
it's either
going to make it out.
And I don't think, I don't think so either. So it's like, why send us there? Like we're not just some, what's the word? I guess we're not just a walkover team. It's not like we're just some random 4 seed who just happened to squeeze into the regional because we won our tournament. I mean, why not send us? I wouldn't mind going somewhere like to Texas, or I wouldn't mind going back to like Ole Miss or wherever. I mean, I don't.
Well, I was listening to Eric Lopez from Inside the Circle, and he basically said if Baylor would have hosted, Louisiana would have been sent to Baylor. And he gave all the different scenarios as to why. And again, that would have been a favorable path as well. I just hate going across the basin. I don't like going there. I don't want to sit on a berm. I don't want to smell their stinky air. I don't want to have to walk around and smell. I just don't like it there. I just don't like it. And even if LSU's, even if that school across the basin is good enough to win their regional, they're not getting out of the super. They don't have the pitching. I don't think they have the offense. It's just my opinion. I haven't watched them. I've probably watched them 3 or 4 times this year, but based on how they played against Ole Miss in the tournament, that's not an Omaha team, or not Omaha, Oklahoma City team.
Average.
I just don't think
this year.
And also think that the Cajuns are playing their best softball. I know offensively they've been struggling a little bit, kind of sputtering, but you gotta think that Lex breaks out of her slump. You gotta think that All Red continues to pop the ball. You gotta think that Sophie's been very consistent down the stretch. You have to think Carly Heath hits a big shot. Somebody's gonna step up. The extra disrespect goes a long way. So I look for that to play a role. And we know Sam is fiery. Sam is a friend of ours and a friend of the pod. She's been awesome. You got to think that Kendra continues to rock her new role coming out of the pen. You got Shorman. This is the first time we're going into one of these regionals with more than 2 pitchers. I mean, honestly, you could probably make a case for 4 or 5. Carly Heath has been good. I think that she can give you innings in a regional. This is a different team. This is a totally different team. This team has played much better defense down the stretch. They've limited the errors in critical moments. They can pitch. I don't know if it's elite, but it's good. It's very good.
It's the deepest we've had since 14. And if the bats can get going, and like you said, the players like Lex and a few others can get their bats going and start clicking, this is a dangerous team. The bats got to get that. Look, that's one of the. There's anything that I thought could have been better this past weekend in the tournament. I thought it was the bats. The bats need to click a little bit more, and they need to get a little bit better. If they do, this could be one of the most dangerous teams I think in the entire regional.
Well,
because
complete.
You've got
got
the pitching depth.
It's a complete softball team.
Good pitching depth, good defense. If you get the bats clicking, this is Oklahoma City caliber, if you ask me. I really believe that.
I agree. Nick, you want to wrap it up on softball and we'll move on?
No, the only thing I was going to say is you're talking about pitching depth. Do you remember a coach ago where we'd have one pitcher and she'd pitch her arm off for like 43 straight games.
Yes.
And like we get to the regionals and she had no arm. She was pitching with a bone. Well, it feels like that's what where we're at is with the pitching depth, where if one player's not having a good night, if Sam's struggling, maybe Kendra comes in and shuts the door. If Kendra's struggling, then Sam comes. I mean, you just feel like you have the depth to make it
options.
work. Yeah, you've got options. And on top of that, if your offense is struggling, you have confidence, right? You've got confidence that our pitching staff can hold the other team away for a little bit until we get our bats going. So no, I'm feeling good about it and excited for the ladies and excited to see how they respond. Look, if the game was that night, then I'd be a little nervous that their emotions would be a little too much into it. But I think there's going to be enough time between the selection show and the game for it to kind of all settle down. But I think they'll be playing with a purpose, and I'm excited to see how they come out.
I agree. And I think that the biggest adjustment that this team has made, or the improvement, is their defense has been spectacular. They played great defense in the tournament. It's the best defense I've seen a Cajun team play in a very long time. Now, you can look at the stats and you can look at the fielding percentage, and maybe it tells a different story, but I'm just telling you, as far as what these eyes have seen through the tournament and really some of the home series down the stretch, excellent defense. If they play defense like that and they get pitching the way they've been getting it, the potential on offense is there. There are kids that are hitting below their potential right now. If they can just step into just somebody get on a hot streak, you never know. Maddie Hayden's a 300 hitter. Maddie Hayden could hit 350. Look at Stormy. I know Stormy's coming off the bench, but she can hit. Lex Langlers can hit. I know she started the season off on a tear, and then she had a pretty elongated slump, and then she kind of started to kind of find it again. She's got big power numbers. She's got power potential. You never know. Somebody is going to click for this offense, and it's going to get ugly. I really believe that they can go over there and really take care of business. Jerry, last thought.
Prove a point. Prove the committee wrong. Go out there, dominate, go win. And this is just one step closer to Oklahoma City.
I love a team that's upset. I just do. I've always thought that extra chip goes a long way. Anyway, moving on to baseball. We had a series at the Teague this weekend. Jerry and I were. I saw you Sunday. Did I see you Friday?
No, I was there Sunday.
Okay. So Ragin Review was in the building Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we were staggered. But you got to give a shout out to the team. So many different moving parts, especially on the mound. You get to it. Like it was a crossing road in this season, and you needed the sweep. To be honest with you, at one point Saturday against ULM, you're thinking, okay, we need to sweep this series to kind of solidify our spot in the conference tournament. And again, credit to them. I know we didn't do any content since then. Everybody had stuff going on, but they went up to ULM and they beat a bad team. And what do you do with a bad team? You abuse them. We talk about that all the time. The boys did that. They went out. Offense just absolutely dominated. Maybe found some things with pitching. Fluno looked good. Nezu looked good. His changeup continues to improve. I'll give Deg some credit on that. He kind of said that a few weeks ago, and I really found his changeup to be devastating against ULM. Now, ULM has nothing to play for. They were mathematically eliminated from the conference tournament last week, so they weren't playing for anything. Maybe they laid down. Maybe the season's over for them. You never know. Now, ULM always wants to beat us, so there's a little bit of rivalry on their side of things. Obviously, we don't think about them very much. Yeah, we don't think about you. But they went up there. They got 3 wins. We needed it. It's a road series win. I don't know what their RPI was. It wasn't good. RPI for us doesn't matter anymore at this point in the season. We just need to win games in the Sun Belt. So they did that. So credit to the boys. Everybody pretty much had a nice offensive weekend. Brock, JT, Rock looks like he's coming on. Max Marshak, all he's doing is hitting about 400 for the last month and a half. He's coming back, and my goodness, him at third and his great defense, his leadership, and his spark plug ability on offense, he's the whole package. When he's going well, the Cajuns score runs and we play good baseball. So good to see Max, but ULM served as that boost for the offense. Moving to Tuesday, we lost to Tulane, or to the Nexters because we couldn't throw strikes late in the inning. Late in the late innings of that game, we hit people, we walked people, we gave up a grand slam that should have never happened. Stop me when you've heard this before. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because to me, the midweek games don't matter at this point. We come home to the friendly confines and absolutely dominate Texas State Friday, Saturday, and really Sunday. I mean, it was nip and tuck early. Our pitching staff didn't look like they wanted to throw strikes. We went out there and we found some guys that were going to hold the fort. I got to give Jake Hammond a whole lot of credit. It's senior day. It's hot. He comes out hurt. They wanted him to start. He wanted to start. He threw one tough inning, something like 20-some-odd pitches, and he was laboring. You could tell it very obviously. We're about 6 feet away from being down 5-0 in the first inning, and they hold out to 1. I thought that was the key to the game. So big shout out to Jake, and I'm sorry that he's hurt. He's been such a great competitor and a great contributor to this team. I hate it for him. But Sunday was the only game where it really wasn't a complete domination by the Cajuns, and Texas State had no pitching left. I think they were melting in the sun. I don't know what happened, but they just couldn't find the strike zone. It's a dominant performance. It's a dominant performance all the way around. You got to give him credit. Nezu goes 7 scoreless on Friday, gives you a chance to win. Fluno goes, 6, and he gave up 2. Another quality. That's 2 quality outings for him in a starting role in 2 weekends. You know, the whole committee thing I didn't love. Seems like we got away from it. Seems like it's working. We said, Nick and I talked about this before the show 2 weeks ago. Texas State didn't scare me. If you look at their splits, I had it pulled up here. At home, they're like 26-3. And of course, the Lightning's at my on my research docs, but they're like 26-3 at home. On the road, 10-13. I think that's correct. Or maybe it was 16-3 and 10-13 on the road. I think that sounds more appropriate. But they're a different team away from Slam Marcus, which is so dumb. I don't know who coined that. But I expected to win 2 out of 3 and possibly sweep. And I think that they showed who they were. Now, look, they have a potent lineup, but when your dimensions are 300, 345, and I don't know what's to write, that's not a real ballpark. Wood dominated us last year. We dominated him on Saturday. Okay, I mean, I know that they've lost a lot. Sivers is gone, and pitching-wise, they're not the team they were last year, but they were the number 2 Sun Belt Conference team coming in. They had an RPI in the 40s. Am I right on that, Jerry?
Yep.
So you got to give the guys credit. Jerry called me today and he said, what do you do? What kind of stock do you put in this win? Is it fool's gold? I said, Jerry, I don't know who we are. We have 1 conference series left in this season. I don't know who the hell we are. Sometimes we look like we're a top 10 team and we can beat the best, and sometimes we can be swept by JMU. I thought that they came to work in a series that they had to have, and they completed the task. You can't turn a blind eye to that. That's big time. And now you're 17-10. I think you're tied for 4th, and the best you can do is tie for 2nd. I think that's where we're at right now.
We're actually in 3rd.
So we're in 3rd. So we're in 3rd now, and I think the best you can do is a tie for 2nd if you sweep USM.
Yep.
Because Coastal's ahead and they have the tiebreaker. So let's spend some time on Texas State and everything you saw, and then we'll move on to USM. But I just wanted to get that out. I thought that the guys came to play. They came to the yard with their lunch pail. They did their stuff. Man, some really great performances out of Max. Brock. Rock looks like the Rock of 2022. That's great news coming down the stretch. JT continues to be pretty consistent. I think he's still kind of behind where he could be, but he's playing such great defense. I mean, incredible defense. Pitching staff showed up to work. Thoughts on Texas State?
Yeah, I mean, I felt offensively, look, as you mentioned, Wood dominated us last year. I thought he might be a little tougher this year because of history, but obviously that wasn't the case. I think offensively we did outside of rocking him. I think we did what I expected us to do against Texas State. Really, again, our bats are going to be there most of the time. Our bats are coming around, and I think we have one of the most prolific offenses as a team since 2014. So I feel like we're going to score and manufacture runs. You saw it with the 3 straight bunt singles, which I was waiting for all season long, and
I was
it finally
howling.
happened.
I was howling.
Oh, it was great. But I think, again, going back to the pitching, we've been struggling in trying to find, like you said, an identity. Who are we? And this was us last year too. We still didn't know toward the end of the season who we were. We were in the same boat. I think this year we still don't know who we are, but we got some really good hitters and they're putting it together. I think pitching wise is where we have the big question mark. And when you get another solid start from Nezu, when Fluto comes out and has another solid start, I think that gives you and the team a little bit of confidence at the right time. We need that because, again, that JMU series was definitely a low point for us this season. There is no way we should have gotten swept by JMU in any way, shape, or form. That was embarrassing. And especially coming off, I think it was magnified by the fact that we just beat the number 1 team in the country and then you go get swept. So I think it was our reaction might have been a little over the top because of the night and day difference between that game and the 3 over the weekend. But still, you get swept by JMU and you're really hitting the panic button because there is a chance that you don't even make the tournament. The sweep puts us in a really good position next weekend. Look, really finishing second or finishing fourth, as long as you don't have to play the play-in game, I think that's where the sweep came in to play so huge for us because now, I mean, there's still an outside chance that we can have to play a play-in game, but that's significantly diminished by the fact that we swept Texas State. So I think, again, our hitting was where I expected it to be outside of hitting against Wood, but our pitching with the 2 starters, Christie started having a little tough time at the end, but we clearly had a game plan. We needed him. I mean, those 5 runs he gave up really didn't matter. We knew they didn't matter. We just needed him.
That goofy delay didn't help things.
Yeah, that didn't help. And then we just needed to get out of the ball game. Like I think at that point they didn't care if Texas State scored 8. We just needed the win, and we needed Christie to get us there, and he was able to put it together to get us there. I think the bigger concern for me, if we're going to talk about concerns over the weekend, I need to see. Marshall has had 3 or 4 outings that have been really concerning, and that's somebody that I need to see more out of, especially going into the tournament. So he had a rough time go at it on Sunday. I need to see a little bit more from him. And I think going back to Christie, look, I know the weather delay kind of hurt him a little bit. I'd like to see him this weekend put it together a little bit better and not give up a 5 runs in late in the ball game. I'd like to see him shut the door. Again, I will say weather delay had a lot to do with it. And the situation that he was in also had a lot to do with it. But other than that, happy, obviously, with the sweep. Look, you got to feel, man, we were at the cusp of getting 2 out of 3 for Coastal. And I know it's on the road at Southern Miss, and I know they've got a really good Friday night guy, but you've got to feel going into this weekend that 2 consecutive sweeps. And look, Southern Miss is on a 13-game win streak. I don't want to, take that away from them, but you also got to feel like we're not going to roll over if we don't pull off that Friday night win. I feel like your goal this weekend is to get 1, but man, if you can get 2, that would be even better. You go in and sweep. Now I may jump him. I don't know what I would do if that would happen. I go right on I-10, but if you get, you're hoping for 1, but you really want 2. And if you do that going into the tournament, that gives you confidence. And again, the 2 seed and the 4 seed really don't matter a whole lot at this point, but you want momentum going into the tournament. And I want our pitchers to show me something outside of Fluno and outside of Nezu. I want our pitchers, and outside of Cooper, because we know what we're getting with Rawls. So outside of those pitchers, I just want to see a little bit more consistency from the back end bullpen guys. But overall, great weekend.
Yeah, I was looking up some stats just now, and one thing that stuck out to me, we talk about Texas State, how well they hit at their stadium in San Marcos. They hit 1 home run all weekend at the Teague. A lot of those deep balls were, flyouts in the graveyard, we call it, out in center field. They put the bat on the ball, but it felt like our defense did a really good job protecting the field. I think we were pretty limited on errors this weekend. Really in pitching, one thing that I noticed was, outside of the Sunday game, if you combine Friday and Saturday, we only walked 4 batters. That was huge. So we limited free bases. Now we walked 8 batters on Sunday, but I thought the defense did a great job finding ways to get us out of innings. They did leave quite a few runners stranded, but pitching did just enough to get us out of that slump, which was huge.
That's a good point, Jerry. On Sunday, they left 15 on base.
Yeah. And as Tony said, they minimized the damage. So that was really good. I'm actually taken aback in a good way. I'm kind of happy that it seems like we found our Friday, Saturday 1-2 and on the rotation with Nezu and Fluno. Believe it or not, Carson Fluno's done a really good job as a starter. And I think Coach Deggs had said in an interview that one thing he finds between Cooper Rawls and Carson Fluno is he finds that Carson Fluno is a better starter than he is a reliever. And he finds that Cooper Rawls does a really good job coming out of the bullpen than he does as a starter. So if you can find guys like that to be more consistent in what roles they play, I think that's going to be huge in the next week or two, because we're finally, like, to your point, Nick, about you hope these pitchers can find their roles and more pitchers step up. I think when you're able to find your role, it's easier for the pitcher to step up because, like we've always talked about, Josh, they know what to expect going into the game. It's not fly off the seat of your pants. Hey, I'm going to put you in for 1 inning and then tomorrow night you're going to start and then you're going to do this and you're going to close the next game. I think keeping consistency in the rotation is going to be huge. So
pitchers are creatures of habit. They
Well-
just are. And you got to treat them the way that their brain is wired. You got to be able to nurture that. I've been saying it for 3 freaking years, and you guys have been hollering at me, and it's not about talent. It's about how you handle the pitching staff. I'm going to go on a rant. Continue, Jerry.
Okay. But anyway, I thought that was significant, having a Friday and Saturday guy now. We have consistency.
And I don't care who the name is. Just find it. Figure it out.
Also, I wanted to say I thought our bats are starting to click. I mean, that's obvious. Even a game against Eve up in Ruston, we scored 8 runs. Yesterday or Sunday, I was very pleased at the patience. I find that, we're not chasing pitches like we used to. I mean, heck, we walked in 3 runs in the 5th, which was the turning point in the game. And then, of course, you got the timely hit, credit to CJ, which basically opened the floodgates, which to me solidified the win. I think the bats are starting to click at the right time. CJ had 3 hits yesterday. Rocco is starting to put some more power to his swing. Julian is starting to hit more. Hoodie. He's going to get on base. Marshak is killing it right now. And the thing about what makes Shaq great with the way he hits is he's so fast. Friday and Saturday, he gets leadoff doubles. Debo bunts him over to third. And I think it was Hoodie that got a ground out, but both days gave us a 1-0 lead. So you start off with a little momentum there offensively and you just click there and then you complement it with good pitching. I mean, really, outside of Sunday, both that Friday, Saturday game, neither of those games felt like we were in danger of losing. Even in spite of the power hitters that Texas State, likes to flaunt themselves with, I didn't notice that. Like, I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm nervous or we're going to find a way to blow it. So that was really good to see. This was, to me, yes, you're right, Josh. They don't play as well on the road. They're better at home, but you still played a team that was in sole possession of 3rd place that from a national perspective was kind of sort of on the edge of whether or not they would be an at-large. And
they were squarely in the conversation. They were going to make it.
And you swept them.
Yeah.
You swept them
and look,
at a crucial time of the year. So
I want to make a comment on what you're saying about their hitters. Small things matter. When you come to the Teague and the dimensions are a little different and it's hot and it's humid and it's out there and you're baking in the sun, how many times did they hit it to the warning track this weekend? Had to be 8, 9, 10 times.
Many. Mm-hmm.
And those balls are out and slam Marcus and that
Yep.
Cracker Jack Ballpark.
One
I'm
home
telling
run
you,
all weekend.
They are a
One.
different ball club on the road, and this place here, you got to be able to hit to get the ball out.
It's true.
Julian Brock hit a ball that went 446, and the exit velo was like 109. Absolutely murdered. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about. I think that was on Saturday. Was it Saturday?
Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He crushed it.
you got to have man strength, and I just don't think that they have that. And I'm glad you brought that up. And also to your point about our offensive prowess and the way that the lineup has rounded out and matured, we have 100 more walks this season than we did last season. Deg said that on Dave today. 100 more walks. The discipline that they've shown down the stretch as they've matured, going to play dividends in the postseason.
Well, the discipline got us 6 runs yesterday, which turned the game around. I mean, if you don't get that 6-run inning, you might not win. So that was huge. The patience at the plate. I mean, Josh, we were sitting by each other. We were talking about it. I said, don't swing. Just don't swing. Let them throw. Let them throw. Do not swing. And they didn't. I mean, you have guys in the meat of the lineup. You had Rocco, JT. I think Hoodie was one of them, or who? No, was it Hoodie or somebody? And they were just patient at the plate. And, in the past, we would chase. So that turned the game around. The patience at the plate is what, to me, would turn the game around. But going into Southern Miss, we're going to need that same type of energy. Southern Miss is on I think they're on the longest win streak in the country right now. But I also think they're beatable too. I also think they're a team that, yes, they're good, but I think we're starting to hit stride at the right time. And I think, honestly, in spite of the RPI and what we're talking about and whether or not you have to win the tournament to get into a regional, if I'm Coach Deggs, I'm telling the team, your postseason starts on Thursday. Your postseason begins on Thursday if you really want to start making a run. You have to create momentum and play well this weekend and seed well going into the tournament in Montgomery. You want that bye, especially if you're hot. So, no, to me, Ragin' Cajun postseason baseball starts Thursday night in Hattiesburg. I mean,
Look, they're
there's no
beating
doubt.
their chest at the fact that they scored so many runs off of ULM last weekend. Okay, if
Yeah,
you
but so did we.
I know, but I'm just saying, if you're comparing the weekend that they had to the weekend we had, I'm feeling a little bit better going into the series. Going, okay, we were challenged last week more than they were, because trust me, ULM made a challenge. So you feel like you had a little bit more of a test this past weekend than they did. Are they coming in on a 13-game win streak with a little confidence, maybe cockiness? Yeah, I think they are. Now, is that any indication that they're gonna drop a game or two to us? No, they could very well sweep us. But what I'm saying is that I'm feeling better about us going into a game against them after sweeping Texas State than I would be if we just swept ULM, because that really didn't mean a whole lot to me last week.
Well, let's talk about that, okay? Look, winning 13 in a row is an accomplishment. I don't care who you play. But let's dig into what really went on, okay? In April, the end of April 21st through the 23rd, they went up to Conway. They gave up 15 on a Friday night with Tanner Hall. They gave up 20 on a Saturday. They were well on their way to being swept, and they put together some pretty big offensive, explosive numbers in the late innings to beat Coastal Carolina 15-7 on the Sunday getaway. Then they come home and beat Tulane in a midweek by 1. All right, and I know that we've seen Tulane. We know what they have to offer. Outside of a miracle inning, it was total domination. But let's stay on task. They beat Tulane. Then they beat Louisiana Tech. Now, say what you want about Louisiana Tech. They're not good. I know they beat us a couple weeks ago, but they beat us because we beat us. Okay? Or, last week in the midweek. We beat us in that game.
Just remember.
They won that game by 1 at home.
Just remember, Louisiana Tech beat them in Ruston earlier, 3-1. So they split just like we did with them.
Yeah. Point I'm making is that they're at home at the Pete where they play much better, and they win by 1 in a midweek. Okay, so that's part of their winning streak. Then they sweep Arkansas State at home. Then they play Tulane again at home. They beat them 10-5. Then they have South Al at home. 6-4, 6-4, 6-1. South Al. We all saw what happened against South Al in their park when we went there. Okay. Then they have Monroe in Monroe, and they beat them 8-4, 19-0, 6-2. Now, somebody point to me where the impressive win is, because there aren't many. And I'm not here to shit on a team that's on a run. I'm not going to do that. I have a ton of respect for USM, and I'll tell you right now, when we go to Pete Taylor Park, they have gotten the best of us recently. It's not been good. So by no means am I going to say, that we don't, we're going to dominate. That's not what I'm trying to say. All I'm saying is that 13 in a row are not all created equally. And a lot of the teams that they beat this past, 2.5 months, 13 games, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, a lot of those games, we beat those teams too pretty handily earlier in the season. So are they unbeatable? Absolutely not. They struggled mightily on the mound for a big portion of this season. USM is going to be ready to play the Cajuns. I'm not sitting here saying we're going to go in there and walk out with a sweep or anything. That's ridiculous. But I think that this particular series between these two teams, it might even be a pivotal moment for the postseason run. USM has got their spot locked up. They're on the cusp of, maybe even making a tournament run and hosting. Maybe. You never know what could happen. I think this is a big series for the Cajuns. It's time for us to step up in Hattiesburg, go out there and win some games. 2 out of 3 is what the goal has got to be. I mean, of course, they want to try to win every game, but this 13-game winning streak doesn't scare me. I'm not like, oh, gosh, they're unbeatable all of a sudden. I just think that we need to go in there and just beat us. Give me something on Friday night to believe in. Give me something on Saturday early to believe in. I think the offense is going to take care. If you look at their numbers, the ERA is not that good. It's not what you would expect a Southern Miss pitching staff to be giving up. So, Nick, your thoughts on USM, where you're at with the team, where you're at with the season, your impressions on their team, the whole Danny Lynch thing, we can get into that after we give our opinions. I think it's time that we get some payback.
Yeah, it's intriguing. I think this is one of the more intriguing matchups that we've had in the past few years because it's the last game of the season. I'm assuming that they're replacing is this a rivalry weekend again? Like, is that what we're doing?
I'd much rather it be against them than the other school.
That's what I'm saying. So maybe they could go play Arkansas State or something. I don't care, whatever they're playing this weekend. But I like, I like where we are at this point of the season versus I think where we were going into Texas State last season. I feel like we're two different places. But again, I think we've definitely got to win one. Okay. Maybe win 2, but I think we've definitely got to win 1 game this weekend. I think we can win 2 games this weekend. I am not going to push the panic button if we don't. I think I might push it a little bit if we get swept, which I'm not expecting that we do, by the way. But I think this team has a little more throwdown than teams in the past that have gone in the recent past that have gone to Hattiesburg. So look, if that guy, tries to do his little dance or whatever he did, which is stupid because it meant nothing because nothing was anyway. If that dude,
all I'll say is about that is throw a bat against this team and see what happens.
Yeah. If he tries to act like a jackwagon again, it's not going to go the same as it did a few years ago. And if their little fans want to hold on to that, I mean, some guy had like this painting of this Lynch guy, and I'm like,
you saw that, right?
Yeah. What? Because he hit a home run one time against us.
Time out.
It's like a whole collage of this dude in different angles or whatever. It's weird, dude. It is freaking weird. Anyway,
the strange fascination with that one guy.
Besides that guy, because that's all they have is that one moment, and now that's all really they have. Anyway, so I think it's going to be a very competitive game. I think it will. Look, I'm not going to say that there's going to be a bench clearing brawl, but I do think it's going to be very intense. I feel like it's going to have a regional type of atmosphere this weekend, and I'm looking forward to that. I think our guys need that. I think we need to be in a hostile environment against a really good team and see how we respond. That'll tell me a lot about what I can expect going into the Sun Belt Conference tournament. And if we do happen to put a resume together and either get an at-large or win the tournament, this weekend is going to show us what we can expect going into regional play. So that's why I think I'm most excited about this weekend, not only for the fact that we can really build our resume for the super outlying chance that we do get an at-large bid if we don't win the tournament, but the
I
fact
think
that
that ship has sailed, Nick.
I think it has too. I think,
Yeah.
but look, weirder things have happened. But I think again, just seeing how we respond in that type of environment is really going to be helpful. If this were earlier in the season and there wasn't as much riding on it, I don't think it'd be as intense. But I think both teams have a lot to play for this weekend, and that's what's going to make it fun for me.
It's going to be fun regardless. That's what I love about it. And that's why rivalries are important. I can't wait to go. I was telling Jerry today, I was like, I'm trying to do everything I can to get to freaking to Hattiesburg this weekend because, number one, we've made some great friends over there, and the rivalry has kind of it's morphed into something else. And, I love Keg and Barrel, and I want to go hang out and see all the folks. It's going to be fun. I want to be in the stadium when the most important games are being played. That's what's fun. So you never know. Jerry, go ahead.
Well, as I've already said it, our postseason starts on Thursday. You have to treat it like a postseason game. You're playing against a team that is they are one of the best out there. They're one of the hottest teams out there. To your point about the 13 straight wins, I mean, anytime you have 13 straight wins in baseball, it's still impressive.
I agree.
Opponents.
I agree.
But I do think we're going to be their biggest challenge in the last 13 games. I mean, we're obviously their biggest challenge going into this weekend. I mean, more than South Alabama, more than Arkansas State, more than ULM, more than Tulane, and more than Louisiana Tech. So if they think that's going to be a cakewalk, I mean, I know they're going to have to get up for this game just like we are, because I think we're starting to click at the right time. And in spite of our little mishap in Ruston last week, we've won 6 out of 7. And we've won 6 out of 7 with great hitting and somewhat good and, really improved pitching and solid defense. And I think this is the perfect moment for us to go up, make a statement, and play a team that, who's created an identity, really created an identity in the baseball world, just like we have. I see a lot of similarities between the two programs. They have a lot, their fan bases, both fan bases are very similar. They have a lot of pride. I think, I love the fact that Southern Miss is a new rival of ours. We've always wanted that rivalry. I think they're the perfect school because we're so much alike, but I also think there's a mutual respect. I think, as much as we love to beat them, I do respect them as a program. And I know some of their fans respect us as well. And it just makes it a very healthy rivalry with two good teams just battling it out. And so I think this weekend is going to tell us a lot about where we are going into the postseason, going into, the conference tournament. But in order to do that, I feel like Southern Miss is that sort of gatekeeper for us to determine whether or not if we're going to really see the postseason. You don't want to go in, get swept, and lose momentum going into the conference tournament. You want to be able to win. You want to be able to play well, and go into the conference tournament with as much momentum as possible. And I think this is a weekend where we can do it. Again, for the last time, our postseason starts Thursday night in Hattiesburg.
Agree. And look, anytime a team is 24-4 at their own park, that is intimidating. They play well at the Pete. Just like we play well at the T. They play well at the Pete. Anytime you invade the Pete, you're going in for a war. And that's what makes it fun. And as a regular college baseball fan, I'm excited for that. I don't know how much the Cajuns need to win the series. I mean, we have to. You need to solidify that 3 seed, possibly a 2 seed. You need to solidify that. That would be huge for the postseason run that we're going to try to make. But also, it's just time to beat them. It's time. And I can't wait to do that. I can't wait to see what happens. They're also 7-7 against the RPI top 50. So they've played some good teams, and they've played well against some good teams. And I have a ton of respect for the baseball program. I don't like the way some of the stuff has kind of precipitated itself after the DJ stuff. And I hate the way that they swept us. That's not fun. But going to Hattiesburg is going to be a good time. Shout out to Miguez, who's in the space. Please don't steal our content. But lots of good fun that we got going on here. And there's going to be a lot to talk about here coming up. Going into Southern Miss, we're actually trying to get together with To The Top Talk. If nobody's familiar with To The Top Talk, they are the Ragin review of USM. Do a fantastic job. Really like those guys a whole lot. Like their content. We're going to try to get together and put out a standalone episode where it's just us having a conversation about baseball and the Cajuns and the Golden Eagles and see if we can get that done this week. That'll be something coming. So look out for that. Boys, getting off of baseball We lost another good football defensive back, somebody that I've been talking about for years. Really like Kam Pedescleaux, and he's going to move on to greener pastures, apparently. Anybody have thoughts on losing Kam Pedescleaux? I can tell you he's a difference maker for our defense. He's a guy that I thought, and I know for a fact after talking to Mike, was going to be a big part of leadership in the backfield of that defense. Man, that's a tough loss, and I know we talked about NIL and Trey Amos last episode, but man, it's just another gut punch, and I wish Kam all the best. He's a tough guy. He's a ball hawk. He's a playmaker. I'm sick that we're losing him. Any thoughts on losing Kam Pedescleaux?
Look, I'm gonna say what I said 2-3 weeks ago, is that the grass ain't always greener. I mean, you can go and make an SEC, you can get paid however much to go to an SEC team, but you saw it with Gardner this season. Okay, the guy goes to LSU, and he's just another little fish in a big pond, and he didn't get drafted.
Well, you can make the argument that he hurt his draft.
And I really think, he hurt his draft prospects. I think, look, Osiris Torres, he had a hell of a season at Florida. It could be argued that as dominant as it was, imagine if he'd have been in the Sun Belt. And again,
Nick, they projected him the year that he left. They projected him as a high second-round pick. You know where he got drafted?
High second round. What do you know?
So, just because you're going to another program doesn't mean you're going to increase your draft stock. If that is really what you want out of playing football, is to get drafted in the NFL, then your chances, to me, significantly diminish if you go to an SEC, an ACC, whatever program, because you're going to get lost in the shuffle. You're not even guaranteed a starting spot.
Or exposed.
And here at UL, you will be showcased every single week for these scouts to watch you and dominate your competition. So it's what the precipice is for all of this. It's money. It's illegal recruiting. It's tampering. It's dirty, and it's going to continue to happen again until it hurts the big boys. And then there's mysteriously going to be some federal law written that stops all of this. But, it's just disappointing, because here again, you have to fight things like softball was a prime example. You have to fight the powers that be to host a regional. And now, like you said, Jerry, can we ever host a regional again in softball? I don't know. So you got all the cards stacked against you. And now you have got the cards stacked against you in football already, because literally all the dominoes have to fall perfectly into place for you to even have a shot to potentially be in an NY6 game, not even a championship game, just NY6. And now you're just gonna say, okay, well, these teams, by the way, you're just gonna serve as a JUCO for the big boys. As it wears you down as a fan. And Josh, I know you said it, and other people are saying it. There's no loyalty anymore. There's money is the factor. Again, I've never been in the position that they're in, so I don't know how much money they're throwing at them. But NIL was always supposed to be something that name, image, and likeness. Like, you can go promote a product and you get paid for it. You get paid for the use of your name, your image, or likeness. And now all that's turned into is, here's money and come play for us. Again, like we said, the bubble's eventually going to burst, I think. But it just makes it harder and harder for fans of programs like ours, who always have the deck stacked against them from the get-go. And now this is just something else that you have to deal with and you have to be disappointed by.
Nick,
hardcore fans like us who've been, lifelong fans of the program are starting to doubt whether or not you want to continue doing it. And that sucks.
Look at the soccer program. We're one of the loudest advocates for our soccer program, women's soccer program. We just lost our best player to Mississippi State. She's going to play in the World Cup. Mathurin, her last name.
And what did Mississippi State do to develop her? Nothing.
Nothing. She was developed
Not
here.
a damn thing.
And now, and look, I wish her the best. It's not about the player. It never is. It's about it's the system. It's the powers that be. That's what ruins everything. She's the type of girl that would come here and develop into an absolute star. But because of her talent level and because of the exposure and everything, she's going to go play for Mississippi State, who has a really good soccer program. She's going to get paid. And now Mississippi State is going to benefit from her going to the World Cup.
And we as fans,
And we won't.
And we as fans are penalized
That's
because
correct.
she's good.
Yes.
And that's going to continue to happen. So again, it just makes it harder to be a fan of the sport and a fan of college sports because the deck is so stacked against programs like ours that I don't know how you ever get out of it at this point.
Well, it's not just us. I mean, you're starting to see P5 schools lose players too because their NIL deal isn't as grandiose as an NIL deal from another P5 school. You know, when the Notre Dame Fighting Irish lose their starting quarterback to Alabama, I mean, that tells me all I need to know. There's no loyalty even at the P5 level.
But the difference is, Jerry, is that these P5 teams that are losing players, they're buying ours. Okay.
Well, they're recycling players,
right.
is what they're doing.
But they're buying our players. So then, I mean, we can't go throw $100,000 at a guy to come play a defensive back, but they can. So it's even though they're losing guys, they're replacing them with ours.
While that's true, though, I don't think a lot of fans, like I talked to fans from P5 schools, and there's not, I mean, most of them say they don't like it, but they know that it's the name of the game now. So they just you have to, assimilate to
well, it's a lot easier when you got the money and you can dictate it. Yeah.
When
they
you're
don't
the
care about the
benefactor.
players. They don't care about the players. All they want is the championship. That's all they want. They don't care about the players.
And I mean, look at USC. The most impressive thing about the Tulane win against USC was USC's entire team was bought all the way from Lincoln Riley to their quarterback to any skilled position player you can name. I mean, USC is going to be a huge benefactor of all this with the Los Angeles market by default. If places like Miami were smart, they would use the Miami market by default. If places, in big cities like Washington, down in Seattle, you've got all these, Texas and Austin, prime example. If they were smart, they would take advantage of it and use that, which they've have already. And so, even a lot of these teams in the P5, even the school across the basin, Alabama, some of these places in smaller markets, it's going to be hard unless they get some corporate dollars in there. It's going to be hard to compete against these bigger cities with more resources like in Los Angeles. What I find in NIL now is, you're seeing a lot of these athletic foundations at these P5 schools. They're not necessarily creating these funds or these foundations to bring in players. A lot of them are creating it for retention purposes to keep the player from leaving. And if you're creating a model for people and donors to give, not because they want to give them an NIL deal, but they want to give them an NIL deal so they don't leave, then to me at that point, if that's your motive, all is lost by then, because now you're basically, it's almost like unintentional bribery. You're bribing them so they don't leave.
Jerry, they had a college basketball player quoted in a major publication. I can't remember where he was from, but he just went into the transfer portal and transferred out to another school. And he said, well, they were going to give me $100,000 to stay, but this other school was offering more. So I went ahead and hit the portal.
Right.
So they're not even hiding it anymore.
No, man. And that's the sad part, because loyalty is gone. There's no loyalty whatsoever. You look at some of these schools you look at some of these schools like ours. I mean, this is what I'm hoping for, that G5 schools can actually recruit to now. We talk about Mekhi Gardner, right? Who pretty much could have been a third or fourth round pick if he would have stayed here, goes across the basin, and he's an undrafted free agent. I would hope that some of these schools can use that as a recruiting tool to say, look, yes, I know you think you're going to get a bigger opportunity at a bigger school, but if your goal is to go pro, you might actually get more exposure playing here at this school where you're more noticed. You're not a dime a dozen at a big school, and you have a chance to pad your stats and get better and develop against still good competition where your draft stock can stay where it is. Unlike going to a big school where if you're a cornerback, every cornerback's just as fast as you. They're just as athletic as you. They're just as good as you. And you have to play against the best of the best in the receiving corps who might burn you a few times. You want to go pro, pro scouts are going to see you get exposed. What would you rather? You want to play in the Sun Belt and shine, or go to the SEC and get dominated by good receivers to where your draft status goes down? I mean, that's kind of what happened to Mekhi Garner. So I'm hoping that these coaches can use that, but what's the common denominator? NIL. You know, what's more important, getting the $100,000 now through NIL or having a chance at a future in the NFL? It's 18 to 22-year-old kids, man. A lot of them are going to chase the money.
Well, a lot of them have to chase the money because of their situations.
And they don't have a choice. Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
You know what's funny to me is
Very
that
true.
all of these fans of these programs that call us poverty and we're trash and we'll never be at a level like them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, are sure in our players' mentions when they hit the transfer portal, begging them to go play for their school. What has changed? Just question. What has changed from the time 24 hours ago when we're no good and we shouldn't even compete and we should just shut down the program to you're begging our players to play for you? What has changed?
Every time somebody goes in the portal, they can't wait to try to get one of our players. I love it. All right. It's been fun. I want to give a big shout out to the track and field team. Men finished 3rd, women finished 7th, which is their highest finish since 2012. The men had a great showing in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Friend of the pod, Jeremy Nelson, indoor and outdoor triple jump champion. Big shout out to Jay. That's some good stuff. Track and field is on an incredible rise back to where it needs to be. Boys, been fun. A little bit of event session on the softball. Baseball has a lot coming up to look forward to, and I'm excited about it. Ragin Review will certainly be out here somewhere. Don't know if it's going to be in Baton Rouge. Don't know if it's going to be in Hattiesburg. It's coming, so get ready. We'll have some special stuff coming up with TTT. Everybody, make sure you subscribe, rate, review the pod, share with anybody who's interested in the sports in general. We're going to finish strong this season. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned. Thanks for coming in on a Monday evening. Thanks for sticking with us through the technical difficulties. For Nick, for Jerry, we're out of here.